This morning I heard this amazing thing Prabhupada said about being equipoised, which totally threw me off. I'd never heard him say this before, and it opened up lots of thoughts about other things in our shastra. And Prabhupada was specifically talking about how some of our shastra is not practical until you're on a higher level, which is interesting. I never heard him speak exactly that way, and I wanted to share that with you. So first, before I share with you what Prabhupada said, I want to tell a story about being practical. So there was a problem. Prabhupada called in the leaders to discuss the problem. And then one devotee, Prabhupada was asking, how can we solve the problem? And one devotee said, well, if we just become more Krishna conscious. And Prabhupada said, after many suggestions, which he rejected, he said, another impractical suggestion. So in this story I want to relate, the next story, which I just told you about, a man asked Prabhupada about the verse in Bhagavad Gita in which it says, the self-realized soul sees gold and sees a stone equally. So what does that mean? So he asked Prabhupada about that. And Prabhupada, he was not initially happy about that question. It was one of those, why are you asking this question? This is impractical. This doesn't relate to you. This has nothing to do with you, etc. And I never heard Prabhupada answer a question like that, specifically a philosophical question. And then Prabhupada went on to say, this is totally impractical for you. This doesn't relate to you. He said, you go into a store and you want to buy something and you say, here's a rock. It's not going to work. You say, here's some gold. That's going to work. So he said, practically speaking, this verse doesn't relate to real life. He said, for the self-realized soul, who is transcendental, said, yeah, for him, nothing matters. And then everything is equal in that sense. And so the Prabhupada went on to talk about the story of Sanatana Goswami, who had his touchstone, which turns iron into gold, in the garbage. So for him, it was useless. It was why? Because he wasn't after wealth. He wasn't after anything in this world. So when you have nothing to do with this world, then stones, gold, what does it matter? You have no use for either. But when you're in the world and working, you have to distinguish between stones and gold. You have to deal practically. So Prabhupada told that story, and basically he was saying to that man, you have to be practical. So then I began thinking, there are many things in our shastra which are really, as Prabhupada's saying here, are meant to be realized, understood, practiced by self-realized souls who have nothing to do with this world. And even if we're sannyasis or vanaprastha or brahmacharis, we're still working in the world to spread Krishna consciousness. What to speak of grihastas, who are always, basically, their whole life is in this world working, raising a family, all the practical things you have to take care of. So if you become too transcendental, you can't function. And if you become too transcendental before you're actually transcendental, it doesn't work, because then you just become like a fool. So if we take this idea, and the Prabhupada is saying, this is not for you, this is for the self-realized, and start thinking about the philosophy in general, then we will see that there are many things in our philosophy that are meant as ideals, or these are the realizations of the Mahabhagavats, those who are completely transcendental. But for us to try to apply them exactly as we see them in Shastra, in some cases it's just impractical. It doesn't make sense. You have to bring it down. So once Prabhupada was asked, do you see everyone equally? And Prabhupada said no, and the man was taken back. Prabhupada said, I'm not that advanced. And then he said, but I see that but he said something like, I want to give everyone an equal chance to be Krishna conscious. That's what I want to do. And the man thought, this is actually a higher vision. So Prabhupada's taking this seeing everyone equally as the vision of a transcendental Mahabhagavad. And if you see everyone equally, then there's nobody to preach to. There's, what do you do with people? They're all equal. But I see equally in that I want to equally give without discrimination everyone Krishna consciousness. So transforming that transcendental stage into a practical stage with which we can use that philosophy in a way that relates to us practically. Hare Krishna.